Hi, kitty cats. Why is it that religious conservative politics focuses so tightly on the queer experience? Don't they have a book that says we in the queer community are ethically, even scientifically wrong? Don't they claim human identity is set at conception and they can predict it flawlessly and correct every course according to their whims? Don't the bills they clog every legislature with every year rely on regulating the queer out of humanity? All of this begs the question, what are they so afraid of? My guest today will help answer that question. The queer experience obviously flows naturally throughout human history because, obviously, being queer is a natural human experience. And, like all human experiences, we must acknowledge and preserve queer history. So today, let's talk about what it takes to remember the past so that we're not doomed to repeat it in the future. Let me see who I have here. So I see Angela and Margie. Oh, and I see Fox. Hello, all. Good to see you all. Um, so on my side here, I'm Dr. Amethysta Herrick. I am both a scientist and, of course, a content creator. I discuss identity and gender through the lens of the scientific method. You can find out so much more about me and the work that I do at the website. You can just see it down below, purplepawclan.com. There is a page just about me. And you can find all the social media networks that I'm on. Follow me there. You can read the articles that I write on the blog page. You can listen to and watch the podcast that I record with oh so interesting people, including, my friend Courtney, who's showing up here today. You can also, there's a link to the Discord server. You can be part of the solution by being part of the discussion. And finally, there's actually a page there about the hypnotherapy work that I do to help people work through some of these issues with identity and gender. Now, if you would like to support my work, and I have no reason to think you would not, you can get a subscription on the website for as little as $5 a month. If you followed me on social media, liked and shared my stuff, commented on it, that is such amazing support, and I would thank you for that. If you go to the website, you can also sign up for the free newsletter that publishes about every 2 weeks. I try to do the dark moon, the full moon, and I know there was a dark moon Saturday, recently, and I've missed it, so, I have to work on that tomorrow. Anyway, finally, I also publish other people's work on the website. If you have original work in identity or gender, you can email me using that contact page. Oops, where is I going? Over here. Contact page on the website, which for the last time, purplepawclan.com. I see my wife's here too. Hello, my wife. Okay. I am ready to bring my friend Courtney in. So everybody be nice to her, okay? Don't let's not scare her off immediately. Let me see if this button works. I'm going to see. Oh my gosh, it works.
Oh,
Hi,
oh man,
Courtney. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and don't worry, I don't scare easily. Like you should see the first comment that I got this morning on one of my videos. I'm like, uh, I do not
It's
scare easily.
it's always great when you get some ugly comments and people are like, "Hey, you're a complete idiot," and you go, "Is that your only comment? That I'm an idiot?"
Yeah,
Because frankly, that's not saying much.
it
So,
was.
um,
It was just like it was directly like you're a freak. Leave kids alone, and I'm like,
oh,
as an elementary teacher, leaving a child unsupervised would be legally inadvisable. Actually, I'm
right,
not allowed legally to leave children alone. They're supposed to
right.
have an adult with them. What are you talking about? I left them the number for the, men's mental health line because I figure that nobody behaves that way if they're feeling well. Like, this honestly,
No,
it's I'm not doing it as a joke. Like, I'm not trying to do it as a joke. It's honestly, like, this could be somebody who just honestly has no idea how to reach out.
yeah,
And it's
oh
like,
yeah,
all things in good faith. Like, I don't like how I get treated is like, I mean, I'm me. I know who I am. I'm not gonna let one person rattle me, right? But
yeah, sure.
maybe he calls the number and gets some help. Maybe
One would
somebody
only
makes him feel
hope.
better and he stops treating others like that. I don't know,
Yeah,
like,
I know. I mean, I think it would be great. Incidentally, Margie has left a comment that says, I'll pop it up. Says she herself will confirm that you rock. There you go. Not bad. See, you
thanks,
already
Margie.
got, yeah, see, you already got one comment. Um, just I'd love to, since you did bring up elementary school teacher, because I wasn't sure. You have mentioned in videos that you are a teacher. Can you just, oh man, I should probably go to I should probably go to my questions. I went to my notes and I'm like, wait a minute, this is my oh shoot. Um, can you? I mean, can just start us off? So you're an elementary school teacher. What got you so interested in just the idea of queer history? I mean, does that naturally come out in the work that you do? What? How did this? How do we get here today? Why are we talking?
It's like it's both like it's a long story and a short. It's both. It's my whole life and like the last 2 years of my life more specifically, but like my whole
Okay.
life, like um my mom's degree, and like I'm gonna get this wrong, and I'm sorry, mom, that I'm gonna get this wrong, but you have a lot of education, so
Uh, some
bear
people.
with me. But it's like a triple honors degree in like philosophy, history, and religion.
Okay, interesting.
Um, so like there was always that like that was always subject of discussion growing up.
Sure.
History, philosophy, religion, the interplay of these things and like how they each feed into each other. Um, like what is the and like her particular interest was always like the philosophy of history as opposed to the other way around, the history
Hmm.
of philosophy.
Sure.
Like that's classic, that's been done, but philosophy of history is a lot more rare because historians especially like to see history as being objective. It's this objective set of things that they've documented, and they have this narrative, and there's this, the eternal march of progress. And like that's just not
Not at
how
all
things
borne
work. Like
out by
everything
actual
is
history.
that's it. Like everything is narratively constructed. I- Everything is ideology. Like not to quote Slavoj Žižek too much, but like everything is ideology. Um, and so like I was like thinking about that question earlier, and I'm just like, um, like a people exists through their stories.
Sure.
So if you control the stories and if you write the stories, you create the people.
Mm. Hmm.
So whoever's in charge of queer stories, and like first and foremost, history is a story. Whoever's in charge of that is in charge of queerness, is in charge of queer existence, gets to
Yeah.
define it, gets to delimit it spatiotemporally. And that's not a thing that people should be able to do if they're not queer.
True. True. I mean, there's the old adage. I don't know if it's an old adage, but history was written by the winner, right? History is
Yeah.
always written by the. Sorry, I'm quoting Thrill Kill Cult there, which I don't know. Maybe that's not the best way I
Yeah,
want to go
history is
about
written by
that,
the
but yeah,
victors.
history is always written by the victor. Um, and to a certain extent, that would imply that what we're looking at today is that there was already some sort of a battle. There was a victor, right? Because I mean, mostly, well, you know what? Hang on, because here Fox is even mentioning. Look, Vox Populi, Vox Dei. My Latin's not good, but the voice of the people is the voice of God, right?
Yeah.
Um, and Margie also, by the way, Margie also pops up to say that her mom is a significant developer of qualitative methodology. This is not altogether different, yeah, when you think about the philosophy of history. Um, anyway, sorry, go ahead. You were going down a road there. I don't want to derail you.
Yeah, no, no, like,
Should I derail you?
you're not derailing me, you're just, like, giving me more things to chew on, more things to think about.
Right. I mean,
Um, so it's
well,
like it's very much like my decolonization professor, like,
mm,
I'm not gonna, like, say her name because 'cause I'm trying not to, like, dox myself too hard. So I'm not like because say her name and then you know exactly what university she works at, you know exactly where I live.
sure. You're
It's
right.
not that hard to figure out from there.
Yeah.
Although we do have like a 2-hour drive catchment area for the university, so it does give you a lot of area
Sure.
to search in.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like because it's decolonization and resurgence
Okay.
of indigenous peoples on Turtle Island, and this like recapturing of our own. Like I'm not indigenous, so like for me, it's from a queer perspective, but this recapturing and resurgence
Yeah.
of our own stories and our own existence and like our reclaiming of that.
Mm,
And to say like we're here, unbent, unbroken, still present. We're here.
Yeah. The the crazy thing is though is that we have these stories throughout history. Like it's interesting that we need to reclaim anything because you can look, but I mean, if you look at the Romans, even if we just look at the Romans who are supposed to be part of the foundation of Western society, there was a significant amount of I mean, homosexuality was a given. Um,
Yeah,
Gender diversity was kind of a given because nobody really cared. It was part of the human experience. And I guess the idea that today we have to reclaim, like, it feels weird. You know what? Actually, though, let me actually stop myself and go. I mean, like, how much history are we talking about? Because there's quite. I mean, in my understanding, there's quite a bit, but I assume you've got further information on like what history is even out there.
it's it's strange to not strange. It's hard to analyze queer history in particular in a
Okay.
certain way, just because there's a dearth of vocabulary. So like
Okay.
all the vocabulary that we use, like I'm trans. I'm using a word to describe myself that is 60 years old. That's it. That's
Sure.
the
Sure.
oldest that you can trace that word back to. If somebody says that they're homosexual, that's 130, 140-year-old word. That's it. That's as far back as you get that word.
Gotcha.
So the constant like pushback is always just like these things didn't exist because you can't find it word for word in the history anywhere. These aren't like ancient terms. These are terms that are more modern and more created to identify and specifically categorize elements of human experience that would have been a lot more fluid and a lot um like a lot more fluid, a lot more just I don't want to say like normal because there was always this like element of oppression.
Sure.
Um but like, that weren't as like identified and specifically demonized before. Um and like d- my books. I have books. I always have books. I've got this is a first edition biography of Havelock Ellis by Phyllis Grosskreutz.
Okay.
Um, Havelock Ellis, I don't know if you know the name.
I don't. No.
So Havelock Ellis is a fairly renowned sexologist from the late 19th, early 20th century.
Okay.
Um, and he would have been the one who coined the term like a inverts.
Okay.
And inverts, that's queer people. That's like at first just like really like anybody queer, and then later more specifically trans people.
Okay.
But would also be used to describe people who are like homosexual, lesbian, as also being like sexual intermediate. No, sexual intermediates was definitely that was the Magnus Hirschfeld term for trans people.
Okay.
Havelock Ellis, it was like sexual inverts. And like that was like very progressive language for the time.
Sure.
Um, but you don't know who Havelock Ellis is. Who knows who Havelock Ellis is? Nobody knows who Havelock Ellis is. I was able to pick up this like 75-year-old first edition biography for like eight
Sure.
bucks
Oh, wow.
at at a bookstore. Like that's and then but then these things are a little harder to come by. These were probably more expensive. I don't know. They were Christmas gifts.
Mhm.
And this is author Radcliffe Hall,
Okay.
who described herself as an invert. So whether she was lesbian or trans, it's like it's not really 100% clear. We
Okay.
just know that she was queer. And then you've got the characters in the books. Like one of them is Miss Ogilvy finds herself. That was the first one that she was writing.
Okay.
And then the other one is The Well of Loneliness, which is the first one she published because that one was made very specifically to use the terminology of Havelock Ellis
Okay.
and to popularize it. It was very much like it was written to specifically use, accentuate, and popularize the very progressive new terminology that we had to describe our own experience.
Okay.
So like the experience wasn't new, but the vocabulary and the way to articulate that experience was brand new at the time. And you had queer authors going out of their way to popularize that terminology so that
Okay.
people could have it. And so, like, if you look anywhere before 1928 when that book was published, it gets a little harder to find these like properly articulated elements of the experience.
I get I don't know, so much of me is going, "Listen, I want to push back on this." So, and we had a little there was a little bit of conversation on the Discord server earlier about, did the does the experience need to be labeled in order for it to be valid? Do we have to have a word that before we can actually discuss and say that this existed? And so my pushback, I guess, is just we can look at gender diversity in the Bible. We can look at gender diversity in Hebrew culture, long before is there's a story that I heard from somebody about Alexander the Great, who went to go get sovereignty conferred upon him, and he did that by going and visiting this sort of village outside of Jerusalem that was very obviously homosexual sexuality and gender diverse people, because they were thought of as like the sages, the oracles, the people. You can see this in Celtic history as well. Fire in the head. That's an Irish phrase. We see this in Indian literature, right? The mythology, Shiva, who can be androgynous or both at once. So I don't know. We see these things, and do we need necessarily language? Do we need necessarily terms? Is this why the history appears only to start 100 some odd years ago?
I mean, the terms don't suddenly validate it. Like the experience
Okay.
is valid without the terminology,
Oh, that's where I'm going.
100%.
Okay.
It's that when you have when what you're facing is a wall of just like weaponized pseudo ignorance is almost what I want to call it.
Sure.
They know that we existed before, but they are pointing at a stack of books and just going like, find yourself in there, like where are you in there? And it's like that's where it's like that's where the terminology and using the terminology becomes important in just
Hmm.
like as a it's a tool. It doesn't create the validity, it doesn't validate the experience, it doesn't suddenly bring people into existence. Like
Yeah.
you look at like Ovid's Metamorphoses, like very like just like the most trans thing that's ever been written. 8 CE, the year
Sure.
8.
Right.
There's 1 digit to that year, like, that's how old this thing is. Um,
Right.
like that so it's like, yeah, um, it's retroactively applying these terms and going, like, "No, they wouldn't have called it this, but this is clearly the same experience. We call it this now. They
Yeah.
didn't use that term then, but we're looking at the same experience," and, like, just crossing the experiences against each other, but by having the categories now, it's a lot easier to say, like, I can self-identify, like, I have, like, trans creator as a
Hmm.
tag on my channel. So, if anybody's, like, looking through YouTube and looking through all the channels with the tag of, like, a trans creator, they can 100% like look through everything and just go like, yeah, this is the trans experience. This is a person's trans
Sure.
experience. I want to be
Sure.
extremely clear that I'm not saying that my experience
Yes.
is the experience. I am everything. Like
Right. Right.
um it's and so like it gives like a way to create kind of like a comparative body, I guess. But you do like very much like one of my favorite stories is La Chevalière d'Eon.
Okay. I don't
Charlotte
speak
d'Eon.
Spanish. I'm sorry. Yeah.
French,
I
but,
I know. I know I'm messing with, and I don't speak French either for that matter.
I'm
But
sorry, I'm autistic, I'm gonna take so many
oh,
things
oh,
literally
my
that I
fault. Yeah,
shouldn't.
my fault.
La caballera d'Eon,
All right, there
if
you go.
if you
Much,
want
much, yeah,
in
much
Spanish.
better.
There we go,
Thank you.
Spanish.
Yeah, so, yeah, help me out.
Here, I'll give you the correct language that you don't speak.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
but no, this was the ambassador of France to the court of England
Okay,
in the late 18th century, pre-revolution.
sure.
Showed up showed up like with a male identity, and then at one point sends a letter back to France basically going like, "Hey, guess what? My name's Charlotte now." Like,
Okay.
that's just what we're doing. And the king sends her money for a new wardrobe because you can't have a female ambassador in like guy
Sure.
drag.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
would
That
be
would be
improper,
weird.
right? Like
Yeah.
it's not improper to have a trans woman as your ambassador. It's improper to have a woman dressed as a man as your ambassador. That's
Sure.
that's 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 the line.
Yeah.
And sends her the money for a new wardrobe. Not doesn't recall her, doesn't like do anything that you would expect to see nowadays. It's just very this is 100% a trans story. It's 100% a trans story. It's just like because the terminology didn't exist to tag onto it, it becomes really hard to argue with historians and just go like, "Stop dead naming and misgendering this person." Like, there's a clear demarcation in her life where she stopped using that name,
Yeah.
stopped using those pronouns. There's no reason for you to keep using them past that. Like,
Sure.
there's no debate there, there's no actual question to be had there, like, you're the only one who's confused here. The history is not confused, you, the historian, are.
Yeah. Yeah. C- Can I let me grab a couple of comments here because I think there are some good ones. Um, First of all, so Anita, by the way, Anita has says they have read The Well of Loneliness, and I guess that was one of the Havelock Ellis books in there. Um, and here is a so here's a comment that Anita made, saying they still associated gender and social sexual orientation strongly in that time. Um, and I'm thinking that maybe Anita's talking that I was mentioning the enclave outside of Jerusalem that conferred sovereignty on new, kings, whatever. In this case, Alexander the Great, who came in and conquered whatever. The reason why I bring this up, I I sort of doubt that they separated them out as even concepts. I don't know how the word I want to put this is. Like, I don't think that the people said, "Oh, well, that's necessarily masculine. That's necessarily feminine." You talked about somebody who is it's pre-revolution France, and yes, but that's like what a couple hundred years ago we're talking about. Um, there's a guy actually, Redfern John Barrett. Well, Doctor Redfern John Barrett. Um, Actually interviewed them on a podcast. It was a couple of years ago now, but their doctoral dissertation was basically, when did we start caring about this? And in their research, I mean, ultimately they didn't, I don't think they reached like a strong conclusion, but the thesis was that people started caring about it because it was the start of the industrial era, and people were moving into London, and we had to start caring about hygiene. And so then people were like, well, we better start classifying some of these things. Do we care if women go into a bath together? Do we care if men go into a bath together? What's the hygiene that's going to occur here? So, Anita, I think this is an interesting point, but I think we're applying modern terms to like an experience that didn't exist. Like, I don't, it's interesting when people say, look, Genesis says God created humans, man and woman, whatever. And it's like, Moses was not writing that. Moses was not going, oh, okay, hang on. How do I differentiate these two here? I don't know that we had our modern concepts, especially like in terms of our scientific concepts. Anyway, that was my little prattle there. Do you want to jump on that at all, or?
Yeah, it's like okay, so the whole idea of like this is give it like um I'm like my brain is the hamster's running on this little
I
wheel right
know.
now. It's trying to throw a lot of things out all at once, but I'm gonna
Yeah,
like so like even if we look at like hygiene things like that, Japan it's still pretty normal to bathe as a family,
okay,
like adult members of the family um being naked in front of each other is not that obscene of a thing. Like it doesn't
sure.
those things aren't necessarily linked, like, there's a deeper cultural link that
Right.
definitely associates with that, but, like, I'm thinking like, what my brain's screaming at me right now is, like, Friedrich Engels, The Origin of, Family, Private Property, and the State.
Sure.
So it's the idea that, like, with the development of private capital, like, with the you get out of this state of just subsistence existence
Hmm.
and into a state where you're actually, like, producing surplus. Well, now somebody has to own the surplus, and then this is where you end up with the subjected class of woman.
Of
This
course.
is where, like,
Yes.
women become a subjected class because they
Yeah.
become part of the property estate that is to be owned and passed on,
Hmm. Oh, the
and
machine through
that's
which we make new workers, right? I mean, that's
yeah,
Sylvia Federici's
and
big thesis. So,
and that's it. So it's like I like, if you want, the world is intrinsically chaotic. Things are
right.
disordered by nature.
Yeah.
You can't actually control things, and so much of everything has to do with luck. But if you want to maintain any element of power, any element of authority, any element of wealth, and the perception that you own that and that you have the right to own it and the right to transmit it as property,
Hmm.
there needs to be some rules there. There needs to be like, if a woman is going to be part of the estate that you own, you need to know what that means, right? Like there's got to be some sort of fixed idea of what this gender, what this sexual identity is.
Sure.
And so it's like that right away you've got this like demarcation of like man versus woman and what the importance thereof is. But no, there wasn't necessarily this like separation of, gender identity, sexual orientation, sexual identity, even just like distinct sexual orientations, like somebody being bisexual or homosexual, or like these things are
Yeah.
very like, this is like the modern atomization of society that comes with like the very,
Yes. Oh, agreed.
scientization and medicalization of absolutely everything and
Yes.
absolutely
Right.
everyone. And yeah, I personally don't know to what extent it's helpful. I just know that these are the waters in which I swim.
Oh, I mean, good point. And to be fair, Anita put in where to go. Oh, here we go. Anita put in an update to say they were primarily explaining why invert sometimes meant gay and sometimes trans in modern terms. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Anita. I was sometimes I take things and I run with them in a direction, and then somebody goes, "I was not asking that at all, but thank you. I appreciate
But yeah, no, exactly.
That's
It's like
why I
it's that
watch
like
these
this
things.
is like it's if I understand the theory correctly, it's the
Mhm.
term invert is an inversion from the like
Social norms.
heterosis
Yeah.
normative,
Right.
right? So
Right.
it's like any sort of inversion from that, any
Yeah.
sort of attraction outside of the heteronormative, any sort of
Hmm.
experience of gender outside of the cis normative is going to fall into that category of
Yeah.
invert. It
Yeah.
later gets further divided
Mhm.
into into different parts of like the sexual orientation and the gender identity, and it's like lesbian being a lesbian and being a homosexual man weren't even necessarily like I'm just thinking like, okay, this is during the Holocaust,
Sure.
lesbians were not seen as inherently dangerous to society in the way that homosexual men were. So
Sure.
they got different colored triangles, they went to
Mhm.
different camps, they were treated
Sure.
differently.
Sure.
Like there was just like, and I don't know, like I'm having a new thought right now that I'm going to dig into later, where I'm wondering to what extent the Holocaust created gender categories and
Mhm.
a separation of gender identity and sexual orientation
It's yeah,
by
it's a good
literally
question.
dividing and categorizing people on those lines.
Right.
And like the Weimar Republic had like transvestite licenses
Sure.
that they would give out. So
Yeah.
like you had the license to like if you were assigned male at birth, you needed a license to dress as a woman in public.
Mhm.
That was a licensed practice.
So clearly they recognized not only that it existed, but that, they could they could recognize it and formalize it. So hey, there's a couple I want to because we're we're already half an hour in. I would love to talk more about
Oh,
history.
jeez.
Um, Here's oops, did I get it? Yes, I did. Okay. So Fox ends up saying language as a method of categorization can unintentionally limit the existence slash experience of fluidity or metamorphosis. And I think there's a lot to be said there. Yeah, as soon as we stick a label on something, what we're trying to do is confine it. That being said, now I'm going to pop up this next one from Spaghetti Geist, which, hey, good to see you, says it can also
Spaghetti.
do the opposite. There you go. Thank you. Also do the opposite and let you understand the vague feelings you have by putting them into clear words. Um, I don't know how much you want to talk about the words so much. I tend to hate labels. I think that labels are part of the reason. I mean, and I feel terrible here because I'm actually looking at something from Margie that says I love coining labels. I hate it because I think that's part of where we ended
I love
up. I know. Oh, well, she's got gender slushy.
that.
Where was the one that she popped up? Where was that?
Gender slushy is so
Gender
great. Like,
slushy.
I know so many people who would do that
It was just
label.
her
So
sexuality is pandemic, I think was how she put it. Now I'm missing this. I don't know where it is. Where was it? Anyway, here's the point. I don't like labels because what it does, in my opinion, we always end up with the idea that now it's a method of control. And you had started going down that path where you say, well, this is a method of control. Let me stop. Do you want to continue down that on that thought? Oh, so you had
yeah,
originally
so
said history. Sorry, history as a method of control, but we.
it was, and it was that categorization as a method of control as well.
Mhm.
It's like I'm just pulling up my notes here because I did take notes where I was just like,
Oh my gosh.
um, like yeah, because like I had to. Um, so my ideal, like if I could just say like my idealized version of where we get to as a society is
Yeah,
no labels. Like, no labels, none. Like,
I
that's
love
my
it.
idealized version, where it's like,
Yeah,
the thought of mentioning that somebody would be some category of attracted to other humans or some category
right.
of gender doesn't even cross the mind anymore because it's
Yeah,
just such a naturalized, normalized part of the human experience to everybody that it's like, why would you even mention it, right? Like, why would you even
right.
mention in the same way that it's like you don't see, like, every biography like William Shakespeare, a human being, like
Right.
that you don't need to specify that. That's
No.
taken for granted. So
Yeah.
it's like, William Shakespeare, a human being who also experienced a gender experience and sexual orientation, like as just a taken for granted.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
was writing sonnets to this man and was married to this woman, and there's nothing that more that needs to be said about it. It doesn't need to be broken up and categorized. That's my
Right.
idealized version of it.
Mhm. Oh, and I
But
stand with you on that. Yeah,
oh yeah,
100%.
it's like right now we like the way that we exist, and I'm not sure like to. I'm not saying that I'm going about things 100% correctly. I've never like center myself like that, but like
Sure.
um the enemy that we're facing right now is very much about pure control in terms
Mhm.
of they have power and they believe that they've earned that power, or at least they want us to believe that they've earned that power and they've earned that
Right.
wealth and they've earned that authority and that level of control over society. And the best way to do that is to convince everybody that like they earned it by doing things correctly, and they did things correctly. So if you look at like, roll it back a while, like the kings of Europe. Why
Mhm.
were they the kings of Europe? Because they were descended from people who had massive amounts of wealth in the Roman Empire that or they
Sure.
obtained it through violence.
Oh,
It's one or the
and
like
then
it
they
wasn't
framed
like
it. And then framed it, of course, as divine
they
right.
framed it as
So, yes.
divine right. Exactly. And
Right.
so it's
But
like
we have this
the
money
specific
because of God.
yeah, and it's like um and then like the specific note that I wrote where there was like God did not see favor with you.
Yeah.
And that's why you don't have it, but I do.
Yes, right.
So, here's my Bible. Or do I have my Bible? I do. Of course I have my Bible.
Mhm.
It's like, here's my Bible, and if you listen to everything in these pages and do exactly as is written in these pages, every contradictory note of it, then God will also see favor with you.
Yeah.
But I've always got something I can point to that you did wrong, and I love this Bible in particular because it's very much like a cult Bible, and it's got like the whole like, if you're experiencing sexual immorality, turn to this page and read this passage,
Wait, what
and it's
version
like
is
it pulls out.
this? I may have
It's
to pick one up.
it's the New Life Bible,
Okay, New
New
Life.
Life
Okay.
Bible, the Gideon's International in Canada,
Oh gosh, wow.
um, a
There you go.
proselytizing Bible,
Yeah.
and like it points you to Corinthians. Um, and I'm like, "Hey, guess what? I also went to Sunday school.
Mhm.
I
Sure.
know Corinthians." And what they say is Malakoi, actually. So what they're not saying that me being queer is a problem. The closest you can get to that interpretation actually is just that like being a male gay bottom would not get you into heaven, but that's like the only thing. Everyone
Mhm.
else is cool. Everyone else is through the gates. Just and even then it's like that's highly debatable that it would even mean that because language was, like we said before, not that specific back then.
Right.
It was
Right.
really not that specific back then, and that's like, if you roll back the translation. So but if you're trying to control people and you're trying to convince them that you should be the king and you should be in charge, it's really easy to pull this out and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, you know," or like pull this one out that says, "Hey, Lot said that you were doing bad things in Sodom and Gomorrah, and that
Yeah.
you're behaving like those people. Therefore, you don't get anything. I get everything." And it's like you're
Yeah.
pulling these things out as like a means of control. And yeah, so like the labels definitely serve to control, but they can also serve to fight back in an era of like scientization and medicalization of everything.
Right.
So,
Right.
like, today, May 17th, by the way, International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia,
Right. I
everybody. Just
saw
like
that.
quick
Yeah.
reminder that that's the day that we're in, and what it is celebrating. The specific thing it's celebrating is the World Health Organization no longer classifying homosexuality as a mental illness.
Right.
May 17th, 1990, they decided to, get with the times, stop being weird, and just um, but it's like that's in an era where everything is so reliant on science and evidence and everything, having these terms to point to and be able to go, yeah, actually, we've done that analysis scientifically, and here's the peer reviewed work that says you're wrong, I'm right, and I get to exist. But you need a word to put on things. You can't just, at least the way that we do Western science, at least in that framework, you can't just say like being queer or having a diverse gender identity is normal. There's got to be some sort of more categorization so that you can do some sort of deeper experimentation or like at least more regimented.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah,
guess
yeah, same.
I mean, as like,
Same.
somebody who started off as a molecular biologist, right? Somebody who's, much of my graduate work was in how do we design experiments and acquire not just the appropriate data, but a data that will help us reach a conclusion as opposed to rationalize a previous decision. Right? I go, because the thing is that it's very easy to make words. I mean, and this was part of what actually Anita and I were talking about. It's possible to make words that don't describe what we observe in nature. I mean, all I have to do is say, how about a purple cow? We don't observe purple
Yeah.
cows in nature, but we can construct the idea of a purple cow. And so, the the worst part too is that you end up with uh I don't know. It's a strange. There's like a push pull because you have people who go, "I want to rationalize my ethical decision," and this is an ethical decision, right? This is rationalizing a
Yeah.
decision after the fact. I want to rationalize my ethical decision by saying, "Here's what we observe. Here's what science says." So they simultaneously want to do that, but simultaneously pick and choose what the hell what science they're talking about. Because then you have people go, well, it's XXXY. We know this. And it's like, we did know that. We knew that 40 years ago, more than that. We knew it a little more than 40 years ago. We started going, oh, that's not entirely true. And so, at least from the land of, yeah, we don't observe a purple pot clan in nature either. They nice. Thanks, Margie. Um, the the point just being that we have this push pull sort of thing where we go, well, I'm going to rationalize a decision with science, but not too much. Because if I use science like we know it today, you're going to go, no, I'm wrong scientifically. But I'm going to say, no, you're wrong because scientifically we knew this 40 years ago. So it's a push pull kind of relationship that ultimately is just about politics, right? Like, what are these people trying to accomplish? Is really the question we should be asking. Not necessarily what's the science say, but why are you trying to use science to justify, some sort of rational, to justify some sort of ethical decision? Um, Gosh, there's been a lot of
Mm,
comments, and there's so much of me wants to
okay.
go, yeah, we should totally look at some of these, but um, I was gonna ask though. So, I mean, I would love to go down that direction if you're okay with it. I mean, why is queer history something that we need to that
Mm.
the like you and I, well, you, because I'm a molecular biology, right? Who the hell knows? Um, why is this something that is better in your hands than say somebody else's?
But depends who else. Like I'm fully willing to say that like there's probably 1,000 better people for the
I
job. I
mean,
just happen to be
all
doing
right,
it.
good point.
Like I'm
Well,
just
because
like
here's
that same
you
thing that
would
I was saying before. Like the world's chaotic by nature. This fell into my lap as an
well,
opportunity, and I rolled with it. Like,
but I mean, so because you would say it's typically better, and I'm paraphrasing you, but it's typically better, right, to have somebody who's part of a community tell those stories. At the same
yeah,
time, we can look at
mm,
like the Roman Empire doesn't exist. The Aztec and the Mayan civilizations at this point don't exist, and yet we tell these stories. I mean, in some ways, you kind of got to go, well, could we ever? Could we ever tell these stories, accurately? I'm not sure if I want to use that in quotes there. Maybe that's the best. But I don't know. I'm
no, we
sorry. Did I
can't.
just make it
No,
worse?
we can.
I
No,
should
no,
have
no,
shut.
no. We
Okay.
can't tell these stories accurately.
Yeah,
We
okay.
cannot. We cannot tell these stories accurately. Like there's a long form video that I'm still working on finding time to edit. Like I would have
Yeah.
loved to because I need to use the computers at the library to edit. My
Oh.
computer can't handle editing a 25-minute video together.
Oh, sure,
Um,
sure.
yeah, but like where I specifically talk about Leviticus
Mm,
and like ancient Hebrew, and it's just like the
cool.
only way for you to be able to accurately say what Leviticus meant with that passage is for you to have been there with him writing it
Sure, sure.
and to have spoken to him about his intention. Like that's it
Yeah.
because you're just reading the words after the fact after thousands of years of development and the changing of language over time and changing of
Right.
cultures over time, and so everybody is always looking at something through a perspective, through whatever their given lens is.
Yeah.
So if somebody is like um, Tchaikovsky's one of the people that I spoke about in one of my videos,
Okay.
where like
I missed
um,
that one.
there was a very deep Soviet effort to suppress this man's sexuality and very much
Okay.
make this a heterosexual man,
Got it.
and he was married to a woman. So like there's the evidence there to do it, and if you're looking at it as a heterosexual person, like from your experience, yeah, it's kind of normal, and like I kind of understand if you're looking at a man who is married to a woman and going like, "Well, I'm a straight person and this
Yeah.
very much matches my experience." So,
Yeah.
you know, whereas I'm looking at it as a queer person and I'm going, he was never with his wife. He was always alone with other male musicians, sometimes in bed with those other male musicians.
Sure. Well, they were writing music at the time.
That's a
Don't.
that's a queer experience.
It is.
Like that's and like that's and both of those have value. Like, I'm not trying to
Yeah.
entirely invalidate non-queer people looking at queer stories, because like you said, it's like we're not ancient Romans, we're not ancient Mayans, we're not, like
Yeah.
we're so like we're going to be looking at these from an outside perspective, but the diversity of perspective I feel is valuable in saying that like my perspective, like my experience, the not necessarily my but the queer experience
Hmm.
existed back then, and I can show you where in these stories because I am queer. So I do
Sure.
have some
Sure.
understanding of queerness and I can pull those elements out and see them and highlight and emphasize them better than somebody who's just not as intimately familiar with that experience would be able to do so.
Right. Right. I I'm reflecting back on something you had said that your ideal would be that we don't have to label something, that everything is is, is a human experience as opposed to cishet, trans, whatever. That we don't have to label these things. And I guess because I guess a cishet fundamentalist Christian has an experience of this as well. They see one of these
Yep.
stories, and if they go, oh well, here's the kind of person, say, Harvey Milk was, right? They can look at that and go, well, that makes me feel like such and such. I mean, I guess in the end, we are really talking history, human history. I got to tell you, this was not something I intended to talk about. I was really hoping we would just talk, queer history. But now that I'm thinking about it, because, I was thinking about, I mean, one of the questions that I sent you was, how do we, there are cultural aspects to this too, right? Because, I mean, you can, oh, I was hoping not to have to try to find an example of this, but like, there are definitely queer experiences that I can have that I look at and and maybe I go, yeah, woo, that's awesome. That somebody else is going to look at it and go, what a horror. I don't care what it
Oh
is.
yeah.
Make something up. And we're all part of this culture, and so somehow we really need to figure out how all this becomes integrated more than anything. And then maybe we're just
Yeah.
back to your ideal, right? I mean, I guess I don't think I put anything new into this conversation.
It's for me like where I draw the line is measurable harm to others.
Mm,
Like
yeah,
that's where I draw my line.
it's a
So
great
it's
point.
like there was one person who left me a comment at one point that said, "Hey, if you're going to say that, like as soon as you're if your views involve causing I said in the video, if your views involve causing harm to children, you're wrong and you need different views." And then they left me a comment saying, "Oh, you're going to have to re-examine," and left me a list of things. And one of them was children for same-sex couples. And I'm
Okay.
like, "Yeah, that does warrant critical examination." Like
Yeah,
I do think that letting same-sex couples adopt children is something that warrants critical examination.
sure.
Same thing with letting mixed sex couples adopt children.
For
That warrants
sure.
the exact same examination because children are in the equation. I
Yeah.
want to know if these children are going into a good situation. Like I don't you as a gay adult and your right to have children and I'm not going to prioritize that over the well-being of children. Under no circumstance am I going to
Right.
do that.
Right.
So but those analyses have been done, and we know that those kids are perfectly fine and often actually kind of better off sometimes
Yeah.
in some way, and it's like and I think they're kind of better off because queer people do actually have to, like, fight for our right to love each other and
Yes.
exist.
Yeah.
So it's like, we don't get to take this whole idea of being in a relationship, being married, building a family. We don't get to take that for granted when we're still working on making our existence legal.
Yes.
Like, I mean, like, you're in the United States, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, your president kind of announced that your
Day
country's at
one.
war with
Yes.
queer people, right? Like,
Right.
that's like, that's so, like, we don't really get to take that for granted, so, like,
No.
maybe that would explain some element of why oftentimes the adopted children of same-sex couples do turn out better because there's, like, this more deliberately constructed element of that family unit as opposed to it just
I,
existing by
yeah.
happenstance. But I am
Oh,
fully on
absolutely.
board with doing that examination. Like my line is measurable harm to children
Yeah. Yeah.
or measurable harm to others. So it's
Right.
like, does being trans hurt anybody else? No. Does introducing the idea of transness to children increase their rate of being trans in the
No.
first place? No, it
No.
doesn't. Like,
Right.
I've worked with so many kids and not a single one has suddenly gone, "But wait, what if I'm trans?" It hasn't happened a
No.
single time,
No.
not once.
No.
Hundreds and hundreds of children, not a single one has suddenly questioned their gender identity.
Right.
So it's like it's not it's not changing anything for children psychologically, it's not causing them harm. It is, however, measurably improving the lives of those kids who do later identify as trans
Yeah.
because
Right.
it statistically and significantly lowers their risk of self-harm especially.
Right. Right.
And by normalizing it in societies, it lowers the risk of harm inflicted on them by others.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I think that it's necessary to teach queerness and queer identities and queer history to children. Not
Yeah.
because I'm like, "Oh, I'm queer, therefore I want myself to be taught." Like, forget any of that. Like, just decenter for a moment. Like, for take yourself out of the question for just a moment and just like the children.
Yeah.
Is this harmful to them? No. Is it my job to expose children to reality? Literally, definitionally, yes, I'm a teacher. That's
Yes.
what I do. I teach them about the
Right.
world around them and let them form their own thoughts about like there's pedagogical philosophy I have books. I always have books.
There's always books. Yes.
There's always books. There's this one, Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed.
Okay.
And it's basically like my job isn't to teach kids facts and figures. Like I don't want to just lecture and give them a bunch of things. I want to inspire curiosity and let them think their own thoughts.
Right. Yes.
That's
Yes.
it.
Right.
And
I'm
so
with you.
I want to expose them to as many things as possible so that they can think new thoughts about as many things as possible.
Yes.
That's it. The only things
That's
that I
how you
wouldn't
learn.
expose them to
Yeah.
are anything that I can say, yeah, exposing them to that would cause them harm. Not gonna do it. Not gonna pass that line. I don't care. If you could show me tomorrow, 100% definitely, that teaching kids that trans people exist or that being trans is okay causes them measurable harm, I would stop
Sure.
immediately.
Sure.
But it doesn't. That research, like, you're not gonna pull that out because every time this has been looked into, it's been demonstrated to be the exact opposite.
Right. Right.
And I forget where this tangent started. I go on tangents, but
I'm
but
unsure.
yeah, that's kind of like that's if nobody's getting hurt, there's no reason to stop anything. Like,
Agreed.
there's no reason to inflict and impose limits on people
Right.
just for the sake of having them. Like,
Yes. And for that matter, also the idea of imposing limits without actually knowing, right? Because you have a lot of people who, I mean, and there's you had a video that I commented on earlier about puberty blockers, where the person was the one of the people who commented was almost doing the look, I'm just asking questions, and it's like, feel free to ask questions, but we've got data that goes back 33 years. Like that's a significant amount of time. Like go ahead and ask all the questions you got, but 33 years is a significant corpus of work in terms of looking at the effect on of a medication. Where the hell was I going with that? Oh, and so that especially when you look at like the Cass report, right? Hillary Cass says, "Well, we really have no idea. What is this gonna do to the children?" And it's like, but we do, like a minimum of 33 years worth of use of these medications. I mean, it's not. And so I guess it gets couched in these terms of, well, I'm just asking questions. I just, we don't want to hurt the children. Okay, we're not. If you're going to put this false limit on there, like you sort of should be, the burden of harm should probably be on the person who says we need to stop.
yeah,
What are you trying to do? And we know what they're trying to do, right? They're not trying to save the children. They're trying to make sure that you and I don't exist. Um, anyway, I
They're
am,
not even trying to make sure that we don't exist, like, we're not even the they don't care about us. We're
they,
convenient. We are a very convenient scapegoat because we are
yeah,
1 to 3% of people. Like, if you're gonna throw, like, all women under the bus to this violent of an extent, that's 50% of people that you got
well,
1 to 3% of people who are already pre-marginalized were really easy to
but
use as a distraction from all
yes,
sorts of
yeah,
things.
but if you look at Gen Alpha and Gen Z, you're looking at going up to closer to 25% of the population that identifies in some way as queer, which is why I like the word
Yep,
queer for rather than
yeah,
LGBTQ.
part of the alphabet
Um,
mafia.
right. I do appreciate your use of like LA gang signs too. Good job. Um, but like 25%. Now this is pretty sizable because we have 25% of the population, that's on the other side of the age spectrum that are running things. So this is, as they age out, is that, sort of like with left-handedness, which I am. They were like, well, nobody was left-handed, right? They used to fucking break people's arms. Like, of
Yep.
course you're not going to say,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
and then it
left-handed. They
went
go, oh,
up
really?
to 12% and it coasted at 12% and it's been coasting at 12% ever since.
Right,
Like,
right. So, I mean,
that's
same with, uh, being on the spectrum too, right? It's like, well, when we realize that this is actually quite a range of experiences, suddenly many more people fit into the range of experiences. Not a surprise. This is what we
yeah,
do. But, um,
but it's like it's the same thing, like, that they did during the Holocaust. They didn't go for, like, all queers first.
mhm,
The first thing they did was go specifically after the transvestite licenses that I mentioned
mm,
before in the Weimar
yeah,
Republic.
yeah,
Specifically, they said the modification to paragraph 175 that was made to allow for transvestite licenses is being revoked. We're pulling that back. No trans people. And that was the first move they went for because we're an even more marginalized part of the queer community where you've even got
yeah.
like the LGB without the T people
Sure.
who don't seem to realize that it's like first they came for, then they came for,
Yeah.
and like
Mm.
so it's like yeah, we're super convenient and easy to go after, but then you get rid of us, society's not going to magically get better.
No, no, of
So you
course
go after the
not.
next marginalized group and the next
Yes.
marginalized group, and you peel it back like that.
Right,
But it's
right.
like there's a reason that like the policy on the strategy against terrorism that they just released
Yeah.
specifically targets radical pro transgender,
Mhm.
not pro queer, not pro LGBT, not pro gay, not pro transgender. They
Yes.
isolate us from the group. And you've
Mhm.
got like these you've got turf radical lesbians who really don't seem to understand that like there there was a word for you in the 1960s. They called you the lavender menace and they called
Sure.
you not fit to be considered women and a
Sure.
threat to the women's movement and like that was the term for lesbians at back then. Like they were doing the same thing that you're doing to trans women right now, but like
Right.
we're mostly a convenient scapegoat, I
Yeah.
think. Especially like if you look like the Prime Minister of Canada's got a trans kid and is
Yeah.
doing nothing to protect trans people.
Right.
Nothing at all. So it's like even if it is personal for them to the extent of like, "Oh yeah, this is my actual family." As soon as they're a political monster, it's like that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Loves his kid,
Hopefully.
but is willing to scapegoat the entire community.
Sure. Sure. I think there's a reason why they would come after us in particular because we're saying that identity is something you choose as opposed
Yeah.
to, or something you develop. Let me make it more like that. There are aspects of identity we don't choose and from there we develop because if you can control identity, then you can control everything. Right?
Yeah.
You're not a fundamentalist Christian. What's wrong with you? We need to go after you. You're not a white Christian nationalist. What's wrong with you? We need to go after you. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of value in going after the people who say specifically identity is something that's both part of us and part of it's both internal and external. If they can go,
Yeah.
no, there's no untrue, you're what we tell you, then that I think that's the point. So I know you
Yeah,
have
it
a
wraps
time
up
limit
nicely by,
here.
like, getting back to it just, like it wraps up nicely because it gets exactly back to what I was saying at the beginning.
Yes, right.
Like, like, people exist through their stories, and if you
Yeah.
control those stories, you control those people's ability to exist,
Yeah. Good
and if they
good
get to
wrap
write
up.
their own stories, they get to control themselves, and you lose
Yeah.
that power over them.
Yeah. I'm gonna see, Courtney, if I can I think I can save the comments here because there are a ton of good comments here that I think could be another like 3 hours of us talking. Well, or you talking anyway.
Yeah. I think there's a way to
Oh,
save the live chat replay as part of the, YouTube live
I think
thing that
so. But I'll see what I can do. But I think I can actually save them here because I've got, like I said, I got it all integrated. Oh, what's this button? Scroll to bottom. That is not it. Well, I'll see.
It's such a confusing
Po
interface.
Point being that, I'm pretty sure I can do that, and what I'll do is because I will send this to you because I think there's a ton of, a ton of good content that maybe would be something you wanna tackle, on your own if you want, come back again, and we can, I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully this was pleasurable enough that you're not like, "I can't wait to get the
Oh,
hell
yeah.
off," but it's
Do like a comment response together, just going through the,
'Cause, yeah,
yeah,
I
that'd
mean,
be
there's
great.
just so much about words, there's a lot of stuff that I think you'll read through and go, "Oh, yeah, I could do this for the next 6 months." So that's cool. Um,
And
but I do,
so if I can just plug myself quickly on the way out,
yes, I was gonna
I'm
ask,
that
yes.
one trans chick on YouTube. I am that one trans chick on YouTube, like the only literally that's just the channel and you're looking for an icon that is one trans chick, and you're good.
Yes, thank
So,
you.
made myself as identifiable as possible.
No, I was gonna ask you, yeah, how we find you on the internet anyway. The, Bo has put up something that says, "We're all individuals, we should all get along." I agree with you. You know,
Yeah,
when we villainize one type of identity, it's a slippery slope
yeah,
toward villainizing them all except for the people who have the guns. This is another
yeah.
reason why I don't think we should have guns, but
Individuality is
that's
fragile and,
yeah,
collectivity is powerful.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yep,
W-
and,
w-
arm the dolls.
Arm the dolls, right? Matt's not here, but if Matt were here, I think Matt would have been,
Join the
uh,
SRA.
yeah, there you go. So, oh gosh, there's also what are the
I might get in trouble for that one.
there are gun clubs too. Pink, what are they called? The pink pistolier I can't think. Pink pistols or something. I can't think. But anyway,
Socialist Rifle Association, they're the
yes.
left-wing answer to the NRA. Let's do
Yes.
this.
Yes. No, I
Yeah.
caught that. I wasn't gonna.
Oh,
Well,
yeah, no, that
Courtney.
wasn't for your benefit. That was more specificity for anybody watching that didn't know what abbreviation I just said.
Okay.
That was I assu the way you reacted, I knew you knew.
Yeah, well, it's been around a while, right? And I remember those
Yeah.
commercials with like Charlton Heston, and I always appreciated the and then it was, Susie Izzard had a bit too, about the as they say, guns don't kill people. It's just that loud bang they make. And you have to have a bit of a
Yeah.
dodgy heart for that, don't you? Anyway, maybe it's something else.
Yeah, it's
Um,
oh god.
in any event, Courtney, this is awesome. Thank you so much for showing up, especially on short notice. Because like we started talking about this like last night, and it was like, oh yeah, I can be
Yeah,
there in 12 hours. Well, okay, let's do
yeah.
it. So,
Uh, Thank you for having me.
yeah, for sure. If you want to talk again, we will definitely do it. And because I know that there's all kinds of stuff we could continue to go on about. So maybe we wanted to an actual dedicated podcast. Who knows? But um anyway, thank you so much. I'll give you
Mm,
my standard little heart there. And
this one
oh yeah, I'm bad at that one. This finger
so
for
am
some
I,
reason
don't
was
worry.
curved. So I was, yeah, well, that's good enough. That was pretty well done.
Yeah.
Um, all right, well, cool. We will talk again. I'll switch over
Yeah.
just over to me, and then you don't have to worry
Mhm.
about being on camera. So thanks, Courtney,
My thank you for having me.
for sure. All right. Well, I'm going to. Well, it's a little past 3 now. I assume we would. Whoops. Here we go. We can do some play some of the game because that's been fun. Um, and yeah, definitely big thanks to Courtney. That was a great conversation that I went in so totally different directions than I expected. Because I actually had like a bunch of different questions all laid out, and it was like, nope, we're going to talk about labels and stuff. So, hey, Yasmin. So I'm going to take 5 minutes. Um, we'll be back. I can play a little bit of Horizon, and yeah, we'll do it. Okay, I'll be back.